Welcome back to the Burr Investor Podcast, where our mission is to empower aspiring real estate investors in their journey towards building generational wealth. Today, we're extremely honored to welcome Nate Hare, the Executive Director at Directed IRA, and a distinguished figure in the self-directed IRA industry. With a decade of experience, Nate has made his mark as an executive, educator, and sought-after public speaker in the realm of self-directed retirement investments. Holding the esteemed title of CISP, a Certified IRA Service Professional, Nate also brings to the table his expertise as a licensed loan officer, coupled with extensive experience in real estate and business development. Since beginning his journey as a real estate investor in 2002 and stepping into private lending in 2014, Nate has personally overseen thousands of investments spanning real estate, promissory notes, private equity, and more. His profound knowledge on self-direction has not only led him to contribute to notable platforms like US News and World Report and Fox Morning News, but also to share his insights at hundreds of conferences, webinars, and podcasts nationwide. In recognition of his impact and contribution to the financial sector, Nate was named to the top 100 people in finance by Top 100 magazine in 2019. Today, he's here to unpack the complexities of self-directed IRAs and share his wealth of knowledge with us. Nate, it's a privilege to have you here on this podcast. We're eager to dive into the insights you have to share with us.
Well, thanks for having me. That makes me sound very busy.
There's a lot to say. There's a lot of accomplishments. So we do appreciate you taking the time and coming out here.
I'm glad to be here.
For sure. So tell us a little bit about, self-directed IRA. Who are you guys and what do you guys do?
So I work at a company called Directed IRA. All that really means is we are a IRA custodian, much like a Fidelity or Charles Schwab. We just hold different types of assets. Okay. They hold stocks and bonds. We hold private assets or alternative assets like real estate and promissory notes and some assets that we'll talk about. But we're a licensed IRA custodian. Clients have retirement accounts with us, but it's for the purpose of buying alternative assets instead of publicly traded assets.
Perfect. Okay. And for our listeners who are, new to this concept, can you explain what a self-directed IRA is and how it differs from traditional retirement accounts?
Sure. And there's a lot of misconceptions as to what self-direction is. And really, when you say self-directed IRA, self-direct is just a marketing term. It really means nothing. It's not a type of IRA. It's not a special retirement account that fits a different set of rules. It's just a marketing term that signifies when you have an IRA with us, we don't have investments to sell. So we call it self-directed because our clients have to choose and find their own investments. We act as the buyer with their retirement account, but we don't have a list of investments to sell. We don't have a bunch of mutual funds to sell. So it's a little confusing because there's self-directed IRAs at Vanguard. I don't know if you knew that.
No.
But they're self-directed into their wonderful mutual funds that they offer. So the term can be used very loosely, but we call it self-directed because we truly find it's self-directed because our clients have to find investments. We don't have investments to sell them.
Okay, very cool. And what are the types of investments that can be made with a self-directed IRA that are typically not possible with, other IRAs?
So when you look at the IRS code, if you're going to think about what do I want to invest in with my retirement account, and this goes for IRAs, 401ks, 403bs, the rules are all pretty much the same. The IRS doesn't care about what we invest in. They only care about two investments that they don't want to see in retirement accounts, and that's life insurance contracts and collectibles. So those are the only two investments not allowed in a retirement plan. Now, most people don't realize that you can invest in all sorts of other things because when you have a retirement account with a traditional broker or wealth advisor, they're only going to allow you to hold in their retirement account the things that they sell, which are your traditional stocks, bonds, mutual funds, CDs, those types of investments. But there's nothing preventing somebody from taking their retirement account and buying a rental property or doing a loan to a real estate investor or investing into a startup company that's not publicly traded or investing in cryptocurrency. These are all allowable investments. The only difference is when you want to invest in those things that aren't publicly traded, you have to use a company like us that will facilitate the buying of that investment and hold it on behalf of your retirement account until you take distribution. So it's pretty wide open. The IRS does not care what we invest in. besides those two things. Life insurance, contracts, and collectibles. Anything else is fair game.
So you guys are like that vehicle that allows them to invest in these alternative assets, like you mentioned.
Correct. Anytime you buy an investment through your retirement account, you have to buy it through the custodian of the account.
Oh, correct.
Like a Fidelity or Charles Schwab. We just act as the custodian of the account. So we're going to still buy the investment, whatever the investment is. We'll still buy it as your IRA's custodian, but you have to tell us what that investment is if you're a client of ours.
It's amazing. You know, I recently learned about this like a couple years ago, and it was mind-blowing. You know, it's something that I really enjoy more is like not many people know about it. And, you know, I didn't know that you can actually do that. All I knew is, you know, you work for a company, you invested in, you know, the mutual funds. They tell you based on your risk tolerance where you want to be. They advise you on that, but you have no control over it. And now that you can actually use it to invest in like assets like real estate, that's a game changer. And that's why, like, I will want to, you know, educate as many people about it as possible because I feel it could impact people's lives in a very positive way. So, as you can imagine, you know, I'm just very passionate about it.
Well, I mean, I became passionate about it when I first learned about it because the same thing. Yeah. I thought, how come I never knew this? You know, I thought I was a smart guy. You know, I was investing in real estate back in, 2004. I had, a lot of rental property. And I had an IRA. It was a SEP IRA because I was self-employed back then. And all I was told was I just needed to put money in it and let somebody else invest it. And it was invested in stocks. I thought, like everybody else I knew, that's just how you invested for retirement. Well, in 2012, I learned about this self-directed IRA and that I could actually take that same money and not buy stock, but do loans to real estate investors or even buy investment property. And at first I thought, well, that sounds illegal. I didn't know about that. You mean I can do all those same investments that I know and understand? I can do that in a retirement account and pay no taxes? I thought I could just buy stocks. And that's how most people are learning. It's probably because our parents, but no fault to theirs. They don't know about it either. But we're just taught to, like you said, work at a company, put money in that 401k, let somebody else invest it for you, and then that's how you retire. But no, it's not.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like one of my first experience working in corporate America, I lost my retirement account in 2008.
Yeah.
When the market fluctuated because I had it in, whatever they recommended to have it in. And, not until, when I left corporate America, I became full-time realtor and an investor. When I realized like I have a 401k, what do I do? So I learned that you can roll that over. Yeah. Now, when I rolled it over, I was informed that you can actually buy your own stocks. So I was excited about that. Like I can actually buy stocks and not necessarily, the mutual funds that they're forcing me to buy. And then now I'm exposed to this whole new world. Yeah. I'm like, wow. You know, so it's crazy.
And it's powerful, especially if anybody is out there that understands how to make money doing something. I mean, you're a perfect example, right? You're a real estate agent, real estate investor. Your bread and butter is real estate. Mm-hmm. If you have a retirement account, you're going to make the needle move more by investing in what you already understand versus just investing in stocks. And it doesn't have to just be real estate. It could be cryptocurrency or whatever. But, one of the things that we talk about, our kind of motto at Directed IRA, since we don't sell investments, is we tell our clients, just invest in what you know. Invest in what you understand. It doesn't mean investments aren't risky, but you're going to make yourself more returns by investing in things you're knowledgeable about versus just investing in things that you think that you have to invest in.
And in my opinion, it's a much safer asset. At least real estate, it's real, it's tangible. It's not like a stock you're basically relying on. Stocks going up and down, you tend not to know why it's happening. So at least from my perspective, because I'm in the industry, I feel it's really much safer. So it's very cool. Yeah. So I want to ask you a question, like in your opinion, and this may vary from person to person or the age groups, like what's the ideal retirement account to have to grow and maximize from a tax perspective?
That's a great question. So I'll break it down as there's really two types of IRAs you can have without getting too deep into each individual account. But there's accounts that grow tax deferred, and then there's accounts that grow tax free. Okay. Right? Your tax deferred accounts are like your traditional IRA or your SEP IRA, where you put money in as a contribution, you get a tax deduction, but that money grows tax deferred, meaning you'll pay the tax when you take the money back out. Okay. That works okay if you're somebody that's going to put more money. If your retirement account is made up mostly of the money you put in and not the growth, then that scenario works well. I'm of the mindset that I want to put small amounts of contributions in, and when I get to retirement, I want the growth to be the majority of the value in my account.
Okay.
And there's ways to do that through real estate. There's creative real estate strategies, and we could talk a little bit about that. But I want to take a small amount of money and make it larger. So if you're going to take a small amount of money and make it larger, the best thing to do is do that in something like a Roth IRA or a Roth 401k, where the difference is the taxes are the polar opposite. You put money into a Roth, the taxes have already been paid. So you put money in, you don't get a tax deduction.
Gotcha.
But the trade-off is, as you invest that Roth IRA, that Roth grows completely tax-free. And when you get to retirement at 59 and a half, regardless of the size of your Roth IRA, when you start taking distributions to yourself, the distributions are tax-free and penalty-free for the rest of your life. So that's power because you're off the grid. The IRS cannot touch you. If you have a sizable Roth IRA, no taxes are due on the investments. And it's a great way to preserve wealth too. If you want to pass more wealth to your heirs, do it in a tax-free account. Now, when you look at assets like real estate, in my mind, again, there's probably people that argue it, but in my mind, when you look at real estate appreciates over time. We all know that.
Yeah.
Real estate also has cash flow, right? There's different income streams with real estate. As soon as you start adding that component of the asset to a retirement account, multiple income streams that appreciates over time, I don't want to pay taxes on that. So I'd rather do an investment like that in a Roth IRA versus a traditional IRA where I have to pay taxes on all of that when I comes to retirement. So when people ask me what's the better account, I say it depends. But I would probably say if you're going to take small amounts of money and grow it larger, the Roth IRA is definitely going to be your best friend. And if you're starting out at a young age and you've got a lot of time to invest, I would say you definitely want to look seriously at a Roth IRA versus any other account.
Okay. So that, kind of ties with the next question I had is like, if we take an example of someone in their 30s, someone in their 50s, because, our audience is a mix of age groups. And what would it look like? Like, is there a different approach that a younger person than a person in their 50s should take when, wanting to start that? Let's say they have a Fidelity account, right? Mm-hmm. They want to liquidate that. They want to roll it over into your company. How would you recommend them going about that if they want to become a lender or they want to become a passive investor and lend that money to an investor like myself?
So I would say, regardless of your age, the thing I think is the most important as to deciding which account you want to self-direct, whether it's traditional or Roth, is what's the investment going to be? Okay. What's the investment going to be and what are my returns going to look like? Now, the thing that I like, and I'm a lender, you could look on YouTube, I like to lend my money out of my retirement account like you're saying. But a thing I like about lending out of my retirement account is I know what I'm supposed to get because I negotiated the terms. Right? It could be 10 or 12% or whatever the interest rate is. So when I know going into the investment, I'm going to make double-digit returns, regardless of my age, I'm going to want to do that investment in a Roth IRA. Okay. And preferably maybe even compound my interest doing some creative short-term notes. So I think it surpasses age. I think it just depends on what you're investing in. But as you get older, if you're in your 50s and you don't have a Roth IRA and you're looking to establish yourself to have some tax-free wealth in retirement, I think it's even more important that you look at a Roth IRA. Because the thing that makes a Roth IRA completely tax-free is not only being above the age of 59 and a half, but having a Roth for 5 years. So if you don't have a Roth IRA and you're in your 50s, anybody can do what's called a Roth conversion. But you at least want to get that 5-year clock ticking. And based on your investments, that's a way to set yourself up for tax-free growth for the rest of your life. So, I think there's advantages to looking at that Roth IRA, whether in your 30s or your 50s.
Got it. Okay. So, who is disqualified from transacting with my IRA, for example, and who can I lend to?
That's a good question. So when I said that IRS doesn't care about what we invest in, they do care about who we invest with.
Okay.
So that's really the main thing with self-directed IRAs is understanding that your IRA or retirement account can only transact with certain people. And it's actually better to talk about it the opposite way. Your IRA is not allowed to transact with certain people. Right. And those would be the people that you're referencing as the disqualified people. So if it's my retirement account, since I'm the IRA owner and I'm the fiduciary to the IRA, my IRA cannot transact with me. Good. All that means is I can't sell my own stuff to my IRA because I represent both sides. It's a conflict of interest. It's not arm's length. So the IRS does not want your own IRA buying stuff from you or buying stuff from other family, which would include your spouse, your kids or your grandkids, their spouses, your parents or your grandparents. So it's a specific list of family, me, spouse, parents, grandparents, kids and grandkids and their spouses. And the reason they disqualify those specific people is when it's either the IRA owner or the person that's going to inherit it, most likely when the IRA owner passes.
Okay.
So what all that means is my IRA can't buy things from those people. It can't lend money to those people. But my IRA can transact with anybody outside of that list. And it probably fits within the rules.
So cousins, brothers, sisters, that's perfectly fine.
Yeah, most cases, brother or family to the side, brothers, sisters, aunts, uncles, cousins, nieces, nephews, they're not usually the ones that are inheriting your wealth. So in the eyes of the IRS, it is an arm's length transaction if your IRA wanted to, say, make a loan to your brother or make a loan to your uncle because they're not disqualified.
Got it. Okay. Now, I'm sure, being that you've done it for so long and you've helped so many people with this situation, you've seen unfortunate stories. You probably heard about unfortunate situations. So how should someone deal with like missed payments or foreclosures, like a foreclosure process? What would you advise our listeners when it comes to that?
So if you're going to be a lender with your IRA, which is a very common thing for people to do, because look, there's a couple different reasons people like to lend out of their IRA. It's passive. You don't have to deal with toilets and tenants.
Yeah.
But one thing I will always remind people, especially when it's self-directed, is the first thing you got to make sure is you got to do your due diligence. Before you do any investment or tell Directed IRA, your friendly custodian, to loan to a certain person, you want to make sure that you've done your due diligence on that person, maybe on the property that you're loaning the money to buy, or for that investor to buy. But if that investor misses a payment, this is actually a great thing to talk about, because you as the IRA owner have to take action, or you have to tell your IRA custodian to take action. We don't act as a collection company. So if one of my borrowers from one of my IRA loans misses a payment, the first thing I would do is just take action. And what does take action mean? I'll just send a notice of default. I'll have my attorney send a letter saying, hey, we noticed that you missed a payment. And most oftentimes that payment just was coming in late, and they rectify that and they make a payment. But understanding the foreclosure process too is also key, depending on the state that the house is located on that you're lending on. That's important for any lender to understand how that foreclosure process works. For instance, I like loaning in Texas because I understand the foreclosure process. The first thing you have to do if your borrower misses a payment is you just send a notice of default. Oftentimes you'll get the payment right back, but I would say the first step in any foreclosure is you just have to take action, and a lot of times that action is just notifying the borrower that you noticed that they missed a payment.
So it's a couple things. And one is vetting the borrower and having, some kind of relationship with the borrower, knowing what they're getting into and so forth, but then also understanding where they're going to be investing it, right? The state, like you mentioned, makes a big difference. Obviously, from California to Texas, there's a big difference. There. So,
New York, it's big difference. Yeah.
Okay. And can you discuss, a little bit about the regulatory considerations or compliance aspects that are crucial for managing a self-directed IRA?
Yeah. So I would say the first thing that anybody should know is that you have, like I mentioned earlier, you have to work through a custodian to facilitate the buying and the selling of whatever investment that you have. Mm-hmm. So a lot of people get confused. They think, Directed IRA is just going to give me the money out of my retirement account and I can go buy this rental property, or I can do this loan. That's not what we do. That would be a distribution to you. We don't want that. So you have to work through the custodian to make sure that the buy is in the name of the retirement account and the sell is in the name of the retirement account, and that all income and expenses come in and out of the retirement account. And that's something that we do. And the only other real regulatory thing that I tell our clients is that since the assets that we hold are not publicly traded, they're not on Wall Street, we do have to get an annual valuation of our assets, which is just something that all of our clients have to do. It's not a big deal. They just tell us what the value of their assets is, and we put that on the books and we report that to the IRS. So that's really the only regulatory thing you do, because here's the cool thing about IRAs. There's no annual tax return. There's no taxation. None of the income on your IRA's investments hit your 1040. So it's a very, very low paper investment. The only thing that's required is just to give us the valuation at the end of the year, but everything else is just flows back to the IRA completely tax exempt. No tax return, no nothing.
So in other words, like somebody can I partner up with my IRA, for example, use some of the retirement account, and then I put a portion in, and then so we're partners, and I'm a certain percentage whatever the income has to be split up accordingly, right? So treat it like it's a separate entity, basically.
Right. Yeah. And you put it, that's a great way to put it. You want to treat your IRAs like it's a separate entity, because it is a separate entity. It's got a separate tax ID number, even though it's not a taxpayer. When you put money in an IRA, it's the IRAs. It's no longer your money until you take a distribution. So that is considered a buyer. So can Nate Hare and Nate Hare's IRA partner together and buy rental property? Sure. I just got to make sure I don't commingle the funds, and I make sure whatever percentage of ownership is when I go into the deal, I have to make sure I stick to that ownership percentage when I collect income or when I pay expenses. So it can be 50-50. It doesn't have to start 50-50. But if I'm 60-40 partnered with my IRA, I got to make sure I split expenses and income 60-40 at the same time.
Got it. Okay. That's very fair. I mean, sometimes, it could be a little bit hard to kind of digest in the beginning, but yeah, if you treat it as separate entity, separate person, then it should be perfectly fine.
Yeah. And a lot of people, they get this, they think, well, that's so weird. How come I don't get the income from my, well, if you buy stock, do you get the income when you sell a stock? No, it just, all the profit goes into your IRA and you can reinvest the money, which is a good thing because you're not taxed that way. So the same thing goes for whether you're partnered or your IRA owns property. The IRA must receive its fair share, its share of the income, which is good because it's not taxed, but our IRA's income is not going to touch your bank account or your back pocket.
Okay. Now let's talk about, some success stories. I'm sure you've heard of like some really good success stories that, our audience would like to, hear about. Can you share a little bit about, a story that somebody that used self-directed IRA to invest some of the retirement and then, to have a huge impact on their portfolio?
Yeah. So I have a lot of success stories. I have, one client that I'd like to talk about that had a $70,000 traditional IRA, which might sound like a lot to some people, but it wasn't a lot to him because he was already in his 50s. Mm-hmm. So for him, $70,000 was not enough to retire on. And he had just left his corporate job. He went full-time real estate. But he knew he needed to make this money grow. Okay. So the first thing that he did before he bought anything was he did that conversion we talked about, which is he converted his traditional IRA to a Roth IRA. All that means is he paid taxes on $70,000 to get it over to his Roth IRA. There's no penalty to do that. You just got to pay the taxes. So once he had the taxes paid and he had a self-directed Roth IRA, he knew he had to get creative. And this was back in 2012, 2013. He started identifying properties in his area that there were owners in distress situations. They had lost their job. They couldn't pay their property taxes. They couldn't pay the mortgage payment, but they were all living in good properties in good areas. But they couldn't sell the property because they were either upside down on the property. They didn't have any equity. So every other real estate investor was just passing on these deals because they didn't see any way to make money today. Yeah. Well, he went into those investments looking, well, these investments can pay off very well in 10, 15, 20 years if I can just rent the property out. So even though these properties had no equity in them, what he decided to do is he would negotiate with these sellers and say, look, you don't have any equity in the property. You can't sell the property. You're facing foreclosure. What if I just gave you a little bit of money to catch up the mortgage payments, maybe some cash for keys, and then I paid your mortgage payment going forward? I mean, everybody knows it today is subject to. Yeah. Subject to is not a new strategy. It's just talked about so much now, but it's been around forever. So my client actually started buying properties subject to the existing financing, helping these homeowners out of distressed situations, giving them cash for keys, putting renters in these properties. Long story short, he bought 5 properties using that $70,000, about $10,000 to $15,000 per property, had underlying financing already in place, and all he's done is just put renters in those properties that have been paying the mortgage payments going down, and these properties have just been sitting on the shelf in his Roth IRA. Essentially, what he's been able to do is put 5 properties in his Roth IRA. Renters have been paying off the mortgage payments. Okay. Meanwhile, these properties appreciating in value. And in a couple years, he'll be above the age of 59 and a half, but all 5 properties will be paid off and owned free and clear in his Roth IRA, which pays no taxes on the gains. So essentially what he's done through a creative investment strategy called Subject To, acquired 5 rental properties in his Roth IRA that'll be owned free and clear. And these properties will probably total over $4 million as estimated value. So $70,000 to $4 million, completely tax-free because it was all done in a self-directed Roth IRA.
So because, as you mentioned, he paid the taxes on the $70,000 in the beginning, so he doesn't pay any taxes on what he accumulates because of that initial investment.
Right, and that's why the Roth IRA with that type of strategy is so powerful, because he could have done the same investment in his traditional IRA, but he would have got a tax deduction on $70,000 in exchange to pay taxes on $4 million. Yeah.
Wow. And maybe this is a silly question, but in case somebody's wondering, like if they're going to pay the taxes on $70,000, let's say someone doesn't have that extra money on the side, does it get deducted from the account itself, or do you have to pay out of pocket?
You don't have to pay out of pocket. It just makes a whole lot more sense to pay out of pocket.
Right. Okay.
Because what happens when you do a conversion, let's just use $70,000 for example, nothing really happens the day you convert.
Okay.
But after the year ends, that's going to be reported to you on a 1099 from your custodian.
Okay.
Right? So you're going to just treat that as income. Right? So there's different times. There's, low income years, it might be a better time to convert, but that $70,000 conversion is just going to be treated like additional income to you. So it's not taken out of the conversion. It is better to pay it out of pocket, I would say. So that there's a little, there's a little strategy there that you can play as to when to do a conversion. Sometimes I tell people, do a conversion early in the year so you have more time to prepare for the taxes instead of doing it, December 31st.
Sure.
Well, that conversion is still going to hit you in that year. So you're going to have to pay the taxes 4 months later in April. So you got to make sure you've got enough money to pay those taxes. So early in the year sometimes helps people. Low income years sometimes help people. But I will say the ultimate decision maker for a conversion is what's the investment going to be?
So for beginners in the realm of self-directed IRAs, what fundamental advice would you offer to help them, start on the right foot, basically?
I would say just look into it, educate yourself. Self-direction is not for everybody, but I would say if you're entrepreneurial enough, if you're somebody that thinks they can grow their money faster, better, safer than what the financial advisor can do based on your experience level, just look into it. We've got a ton of education at Directed IRA, so I would tell anybody, just go to our website, directedira.com. We've got a Learn tab. Our Learn tab includes webinars, workshops, podcasts. For us, it's important to educate people about how they work, because since we don't sell investments, we at least need to tell people, here's how it works and here's what to expect, because there's a little bit of a learning curve if somebody hasn't done it for the first time. So I would just say anybody that's interested in it, educate yourself, go to directedira.com. Don't get scared about the unknown. A lot of times I tell people, do your first investment, even if it's a small one, even if it's a small crypto purchase, at least get familiar with how the process works and maybe graduate toward, buying a rental property, doing a promissory note in your IRA. But education is key. The more you know, the easier it becomes.
Definitely. So it sounds like, if somebody does have like a retirement account with Fidelity or something and they want to take the first step is reaching out to you guys, and you guys can guide them, hold their hand through the process and set things up for them.
Yeah, you can book a call with one of our IRA executives. We've got a dozen of them, including myself. Talk to them. Again, educate yourself. But just know that you have more options when it comes to your retirement assets. And truthfully, most of our clients, they invest in both traditional and alternative assets. They don't just do one or the other. Most of our clients have an IRA at Fidelity, but they also have an IRA at Directed IRA because they want the ability to invest in all sorts of things so they can diversify themselves. And there's no limit on how many IRAs you can have. You can have as many as you want.
So great. I do appreciate that. So if any of you want to get started, reach out to them. We're going to have in the comment section below how you can reach out to Nate and his team. We're also going to drop a discount code below as well. So check that out so you can get $100 off of setting up your account.
Yeah, we got a special discount for anybody that comes through or watches this. Just use that coupon code PEAK100 and you get $100 off any account that you establish with Directed IRA.
Perfect. Well, Nate, thank you so much for the time, man. I appreciate you coming down here and sharing all this information.
Yeah, anytime. It's been great.
Thank you all for joining us on the Burr Investor Podcast. If you found today's episode helpful, please hit like and subscribe to our channel for more real estate insights. We love hearing from you, so please leave your thoughts, questions, or topics you'd like us to cover in the comment section below. Be sure to check out our website, theburrinvestor.com, and follow us on social media at The Burr Investor. Keep learning and investing, and we'll see you in the next episode. I'm your host, Alex Nale. Stay invested.